if you are serious about changing your community, and let's be real, can I just be very, very real with you? We're not talking about people you don't know. We're talking about your sons, we're talking about your daughters, we're talking about your nephews, we're talking about your grandchildren. Pay attention, the next dead person could be your son, your grandson, or somebody in your family. Go ahead, tell them. Don't be scared, the police are here.
In this city, you have 83 churches or places of faith, and that's 10,000 people that worship here every single Sunday. And the city's only 1.3 square miles, and there's only 13,000 people living here. You can do a lot with an army like that in terms of tackling poverty and education.
Wait, just in case you think I don't know what I'm talking about. After 15 and a half years in prison, 6.5 on death row, 3.5 in one cell for 23 and a half hours a day for picking up a gun and shooting somebody who was a drug dealer who was attempting to beat me up and rob me in the community with that blurred line, and then 15 years later being vindicated and extricated from prison on a self-defense executive pardon. I think I know a little bit about being a scared little 16-year-old boy that made the wrong choice.
And I can assure you, when the train station gets built, it will be built with people from Coatesville, and the training will take place. Also, I can assure you that we've been putting pressure on to finally get the RFP issued so we can proceed with the revitalization of 3rd Street and 4th Street. And the department has assured me they're 98% there, PennDOT, in issuing the RFP. And we're continuing. They're going to revitalize all the 3rd Street all the way down to the station. And then one reason it got delayed is they added Fleetwood's part of Fleetwood Street and 4th Street, so we can get more out of this. The money's there, so that's not the problem. The problem is getting PennDOT to move.
If you take a look at our badge, it's the shape of a shield and not a dagger. And if we take that approach, we can be guardians, caretakers of Coatesville and all within.
People, this is not some one-horse town where you don't have modern problems. The violence is going to affect, listen, quality education is important. Nobody can take it from you, but they can take your life, and that's right up there pretty important too. And if children don't feel safe, they're not gonna go to school. And then what do with dropouts and suspended kids? You just can't throw them away. But if you take this one subject, not just under a banner of Black Lives Matter, if you take the subject Children Matter and you deal all together with violence, then we can talk about educating children. But if you can't keep them alive and you can't keep them safe, you're not going to have a school where children go to.
One more time. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the discussion. My name is Dr. Vincent Miles, and I'm one that comes from the community. It's my job to moderate the discussion as it relates to the Coatesville community, the school district, and our law enforcement. At this juncture, well, I'm pleased, first of all, to have a distinguished panel that sits behind me. I'm thankful for all of the respectful citizens that have come out today in order to participate today. I am really honored today to have Mr. Elwood Dixon, who is going to come before you in a minute. I'm so appreciative of Mr. Dixon for all the years that he has been in the community trying to make a difference. Without further ado, he's going to come before you and give you the statement of the purpose. Mr. Dixon, let's give him a good hand clap as he comes.
I'm here, like everyone else, to be able to
try to get us all together to bring this community, as far as I'm concerned, to bring it to where it's supposed to be. The things that we work on and for is where we need help. And that's you people out here. It's your community. We need people who are going to be committed, because this is not a one-day event. I'm going to read to you. I'm here as a representative of our community, concerned citizen. I am a firm believer that each resident and organization deserves the best in the community that we can build, and doing the things that we require as an honest effort from each other to make it. Each of us has a talent of doing something positive. Some of them are good at communicating with others. Some are good to organize movements or events. And in order to achieve positive results, we must have positive action, requiring the efforts of positive people. It will take the coming together of our government, our law enforcement, our school system, our churches, and our community organizations to recognize that only a joint effort will get us to where we'd like to be. After all, this is for the sake of all residents and most of our children. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Dixon. At this juncture, I'm going to invite Mrs. Dorinda Westmoreland to come forth in order to introduce our speaker for a brief moment.
Pastor Derrick D. Johnson, through sheer force of will, has become a sought-after consultant on strategies to reduce violence in communities, programmatic models for extraction from an alternative to gang and violent lifestyles in youth. He is the first formerly incarcerated person with an executive pardon to be the leading candidate for mayor of the city of Wilmington in 2012, and is currently the first such person to be appointed gang and violence czar of a major metropolitan city by the Honorable Mayor Dennis P. Williams. It is my honor that I introduce to you now Pastor Derrick D. Johnson.
Thank you. Many communities and schools are dealing with the same dilemma. In my first conversation with President Obama, as we sat and talked about such things you hear about on the news like Our Brother's Keeper and other issues, right at the top was violence in schools. Right at the top was community relationships with police. Right at the top was the disproportionate ratio of Black incarcerated, African American incarcerated, as opposed to other ethnicities. And all of these have to be addressed together. All of these have to be addressed in order to deal with the problems that you face. It's very, very important from here that you listen closely to these next words if you are serious about changing your community. And let's be real. Can I just be very, very real with you? We're not talking about people you don't know. We're talking about your sons. We're talking about your daughters. We're talking about your nephews. We're talking about your grandchildren. So if anybody next to you is talking to you right now, nudge them and tell them, pay attention. The next dead person could be your son, your grandson, or somebody in your family. And by the way, just in case you think I don't know what I'm talking about, after 15 and a half years in prison, 6.5 on death row, 3.5 in one cell for 23.5 hours a day, for picking up a gun and shooting somebody who was a drug dealer who was attempting to beat me up and rob me in the community with that blurred line, and then 15 years later being vindicated and extricated from prison on a self-defense executive pardon. I think I know a little bit about being a scared little 16-year-old boy that made the wrong choice. And any one of these young people out here today could make that same choice. And so one more time, just tell somebody, pay attention. What walls am I talking about? The walls that used to be in school where a teacher could teach for the love of teaching and did not have to worry about a job for high pay, where a doctor worked for the healing of the day and did not work for a golf club and high pay. Those walls are ruined. But not only that, if you just walk down the street, you'll find the crack valves. You'll see the heroin sales. You'll see young girls attempting to sell their bodies. Those walls have been ruined. Family walls have been ruined because 4 out of every 10 have a person who's been or is currently incarcerated. And reentry programs are few. And so the question remains, will you rest in the ruins? This guy Nehemiah was working for a government official, a king, but the equivalent of a governor, and he heard that his community lied in ruins. He heard that kids 13 and 14 were cursing at their own parents. He heard that small children, little girls, were putting tattoos on their belly buttons, and instead of stacking it up with the degrees, they were clapping it up, drop down, getting eagles on, and being exposed to sexual immorality. He heard that the place where he grew up, the place where he ate pancakes on his grandmother's table, the place where he went to church, the place where he went to school, he heard that it was ruined. How many people out here have seen something ruined in the last 5 years? In your family, in your community? Let's be honest. How many people out here can look and say, that boy could have been anything, and now his life is ruined because he's standing on a street corner with a gun in his belt instead of a degree in his hand? If you've seen anything ruined and you're sad about it, just wave at me. You don't even have to clap. Of course. Now here's the question. Will you rest in the ruins? When I came back from prison, I came back with 2 degrees in law, came back with 1 in psychology, and obviously 1 in theology. And I was angered by what I saw. And I made a decision. I'm not going to rest with the ruins. I refuse to accept that our schools are failed. They may be failing, but we have not failed. I refuse to accept that communities cannot come together. I want to show you something in the newspaper. This is one of the newspapers that carry. This is Howard High School in Wilmington, Delaware. A African-American high school which has spurned the likes of Dr. King's great friends. Many African-American doctors, law enforcement officials have come out of this school. Tragically, a few months ago in that school, a group of young girls involved in a gang jumped on another young girl in the bathroom and killed her dead in the bathroom. The school exploded. This is a front page picture of myself. No one could get control of the children. As you see the front page picture, thousands, not just a few, because there are a lot of our children who want a quality education, who are afraid of what's going into school. They are not murderers. They are not drug dealers. They want to go to school. They want to get a good education, but their walls are in ruin, and they are wondering, what are you going to do about this situation so that I can get an education? Thousands of them in that picture were saying, Pastor D, we want to go to school. Are you going to rest in this ruined situation?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Aldette. Trying to encourage our officers to get out of the vehicle, stop into the businesses, see how the store owners are making out, and have that conversation. And while they're out of that car, also have a conversation with the community members that they're walking by. Just to try to break down that barrier, which is the police car. We find ourselves, unfortunately, in this vehicle that is a wall. between us and the community. We don't have that conversation of hello, how are you today? And that small little interaction might be a difference between a community member telling us that they have a problem on their street.
Is that our police department, under the exceptional leadership of Chief Jack Lawfer and of course my lieutenant, there's been a shift in our policing strategy. And we have moved from law enforcement to policing. But I'll just break it down real simply. Law enforcement is making arrests, enforcing the law. Policing is more relational. So while law enforcement is so very important in the totality of what we do, policing includes relationship building, prevention, outreach, programming, things that give us an opportunity to have conversation, because we are only as successful as the community, let's be honest. So we need to have those conversations. We need to foster and then maintain constructive relationships.